Good morning, Professor. Today, me and my group members are going to present our final assessment for Proposal for Amazon, the Localized AI-Driven Expansion Framework. I am Jia Sani and I am joined by Sailesh and Sunita. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk you through the problem we diagnosed, the innovation we are proposing, how we would lead the change, and how we would implement and measure it. So now I'll tell you about Amazon and the growth problem. Amazon is a global leader across e-commerce, cloud computing, advertising, logistics, and AI. Growth has been strong and consistent in North America and parts of Europe, but in China, Africa, and Latin America, growth is markedly inconsistent, held by regulatory hurdles, weak infrastructure, cultural differences, and strong local competitors like Alibaba and others. What's important is that this isn't one underperforming market. It's the same pattern repeating across very different regions, which tells us the issue sits inside Amazon's operating model, not in local conditions alone. That's the problem this proposal is built to solve. Now I'll tell you about the roadmap. Here's how we'll take you through the presentation. First, our diagnosis, the external pestle analysis and internal Michelson 7S analysis. Second, the innovation itself, that is the localized AI-driven expansion framework. Third, how we would lead the change using Levin's and Kotter's models. Fourth, the people and the risk side, our stakeholders and how we would manage resistance. And finally, how we would actually deliver it. A 24-month implementation plan, budget, KPIs, and how we would sustain it for a long term. Coming on to the pestle analysis. Our pestle analysis maps the external pressures Amazon operates under globally. Politically, there is rising scrutiny of big tech and cross-border trade tensions. Economically, inflation and labor shortages are squeezing margins. Socially, customers expect fast, personalized delivery, while employees are increasingly anxious about automation. Technologically, AI and robotics are transforming fulfillment, but adoption isn't even cross regions. Legally, data privacy laws like GDPR and antitrust risks are constant considerations. And finally, environmentally, there is ongoing pressure to decarbonize a huge logistics and data center footprint. Together, these factors show why a one size fits all global strategy is becoming harder to sustain. Coming on to the next analysis, that is Mckinsey 7S analysis. We use the Mckinsey 7S framework to look at Amazon itself. Four of the seven elements are genuine strengths that competitors would struggle to replicate quickly. That is strategy, systems, shared values, and skills. But three softer elements are weaker, that is, structure is highly centralized and slows regional decisions. Style prioritizes speed and efficiency over local autonomy. And staff have strong technical skills but limited local market experience. So the picture that emerges is clear. Amazon's weakness is configuration, not capability. And that distinction is what shapes our entire proposal. So now I will tell about the drivers of change. Four forces are pushing Amazon towards change. Firstly, technological unevenness. AI and predictive analysis don't automatically transfer. to markets with different infrastructure. Second, local competition. Rivals like Alibaba and others win on local market knowledge, not just scale. Third, regulatory pressure. Tougher data protection and digital trade rules require region aware compliance. And fourth, workforce and sustainability expectations. Rising automation anxiety among staff alongside growing pressure to decarbonize. Innovation here has to solve technological, competitive, regulatory, and human problems together, not in isolation. So in this slide, I will tell about what does Amazon actually need. So Amazon actually needs a system that keeps the efficiency of its centralized tech while enabling decentralized region-specific decisions. So we considered and rejected two weaker options. First, full decentralization would sacrifice Amazon's efficiency of scale and would be too costly and risky. Second, a purely technical fix isn't enough either. Digital transformation research consistently shows technology alone does not work without organizational and governance change. So, the real gap sits at the intersection of technology and governance. That's exactly where our proposed framework is targeted. Thank you, that was my part. Now, the presentation will be continued by Sailesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zia. In this slide, I will be talking about the localized AI-driven expansion framework. This brings us to our proposed innovation, the localized AI-driven expansion framework. In simple terms, it's a region-specific decision-making layer built on top of Amazon's existing AWS and machine learning infrastructure. It enables real-time local customer analysis, dynamic pricing, tailored supply chain optimization, and built-in regulatory compliance. Critically, it's additive, not disruptive. Amazon keeps its entire technology stack and simply adds a local decision making overlay on top of it. In this slide, I will be talking how the framework works. Practically here how it works. The central AI backbone, Amazon's existing AWS machine learning services, stays trained, maintained, and monitored centrally for efficiency and consistency. On top of that sits a regional decision layer where regional teams can adjust pricing bands, suppliers, delivery routes, and promotional targeting. This all happens within government's boundaries set centrally, so local autonomy is real but bounded, not unrestricted. And because we are building on existing infrastructure rather than replacing it, avoids duplicating Amazon's technology investment. It's a governance and configuration change, which makes it low cost and low risk. This framework has three core objectives. First, smoother growth in markets like China, Africa, and Latin America, where local rivals are strongest. Second, less operational friction from one size fits all global approach. And third, stronger competitive standing where local competition is entrenched. There is also a supporting objective that applies across all three, achieving this without compromising the cost efficiency and operational discipline Amazon's centralized system already delivered in its stronger markets. We just success on both fronts, improvement where Amazon is weak and preservation of what already works. This proposal aligns closely with where Amazon already is. It builds on existing strength rather than acquiring new core infrastructure, consistent with Amazon's history of capital reinvestment. It delivers localization without abandoning Amazon's customer-centric values, and because it's an incremental extension of a direction Amazon has already committed to, it is more likely to secure executive backing than a radical restructuring proposal would be. Value is created in three ways: operationally through faster and cheaper delivery, competitively by running the localization gap into Amazon's own advantages, and organizationally through learning. Each pilot makes the next rollout faster and smarter. Delivering this requires a real shift in leadership style from centralized to distributed. Senior leaders needs to be transformational leaders who champion localization and give regional managers genuine authority, not just advisory input. Regional managers need real decision making rights over pricing, sourcing, and service delivery. We also need two-way feedback loops, regular reporting up from pilot markets, not only instruction down from the head office. And because this is a meaningful departure from Amazon's current centralized efficiency first style, leaders will need intentional development in cross cultural coaching and sensitivity. To lead the change itself, we apply two established models. First, Lewin's three-stage model. On freeze, surface the limit of Amazon's current uniform global strategy and build the case for change. Move, introduce the localization-centered approach through pilot programs with regional decision-making and AI tools. Refreeze, embed the new practices into Amazon's culture and standard operating procedures so they don't get quietly rolled back when initial attention fades. Alongside Lewin's, we use Kotter's 8-step model to sustain momentum. It runs from creating urgency around competitive threats through building a coalition, forming and communicating the vision, empowering regional teams to act, generating short-term wins from pilot markets, consolidating those gains by scaling successful pilots, and finally anchoring the new approach in Amazon's culture. One known criticism of Kotter's model is that it's light on measurement, which is exactly why our implementation plan coming up shortly builds in concrete KPIs and a timeline. Now I would like to call Sunita to continue the presentation.
Now to the people side, starting with culture and communication, Amazon's culture is strongly customer centric and innovation focused, which aligns well with this framework, but its centralized decision making habits can create friction with a decentralized approach. So leaders need to frame regional autonomy as a way to better serve customer, not as losing standards. Our communication plan follows Cortez model, start with an urgency building message backed by competitive evidence, followed with a clear vision statement, and maintain regular open reporting on pilot outcomes. We identify five stakeholder groups, each needing a different engagement approach. Employees and frontline workers need upskilling and reassurance about role evolution, not replacement. Regional and global management need new leadership capability as they shift from centralized control to decentralized decision making. Customers benefit from faster, culturally attuned, personalized service. Suppliers and logistics partners gain from better demand forecasting but need to align with new local standards. And regulators and governments benefit from improved compliance with privacy, labor, and environmental rules. A one size fits all engagement approach won't work here. Each group needs tailored communication. We We expect resistance from three groups and we will manage all three with the same underlying approach. Gradualism and evidence. Frontline workers may fear being replaced by AI. We address that through upskilling and transparent discussion of role transition rather than replacement. Senior leaders may fear losing control. We address that through a progressive release of control paired with clear regional KPIs, and regional teams might experience new autonomy as an unfunded mandate, responsibility without the resources to deliver. We prevent that by extending autonomy, resourcing, and accountability together at every stage, never autonomy on its own. We identify four key risks is mapped directly to the stakeholder concern we just covered. Workforce automation anxiety is addressed through structure of skilling and transparent messaging. Loss of central control is managed through gradual autonomy within defined governance boundaries. Regulatory and compliance complexity is handled by building jurisdiction specific compliance checks directly into the AI framework itself, and the risks of upfront investment and ROI pressure is managed by starting with just one or two pilot markets to prove the model before scaling further. Implementation runs across 24 months in 5 phases, following Lewin and Carter. Phase 1, months 1 to 4, unfreeze and mobilize, build urgency from the guiding coalition and finalize governments. Phase 2, months 5 to 12, pilot the framework in Latin America and Africa. Phase 3, months 13 to 15, evaluate the pilot KPIs and adjust governments and technology. Phase 4 is months 16 to 22, scale to additional priority markets. Phase 5, months 23 and 24, refreeze embedded the new processes into standard operating procedures. The 24 months window is deliberate, long enough to generate statistically meaningful pilot data, short enough to keep executive attention engaged. Delivery requires a small central program office for governments and compliance regional implementation teams in each pilot markets, AI and ML engineering resources to tailor the localization models on Amazon's existing AWS platform, and a training function to upskill staff. On the budget side, because we are building an existing AWS and AI system rather than a new core infrastructure, the pilot is relatively low cost. The largest scale 30% goes to technology configuration and AI model localization, followed by workforce training at 25%, governance and compliance setup at 20%, change management and communication at 15%, with 10% held as contingency. We track 6 KPIs across different review cycles: regional revenue growth quarterly against a pre-pilot baseline, delivery speed and fulfillment efficiency monthly, employee upskilling completion quarterly, regulatory compliance incidents on ongoing basis with the target of zero, customer satisfaction through quarterly surveys, and pilot ROI against budget at the end of phase 3. Importantly, we don't rely on financial metrics alone. Customer experience, process efficiency, and workforce learning are tracked together, and all of this feeds directly into phase 3. Evaluate and adjust checkpoint before any decision to scale further. To close, three themes run through every time we have presented. First, this is configuration constraint, not the capability constraint. It's about how decisions are made, not new technology. Second, the path forward is gradual and evidence based. A phased rollout, a pilot first approach, and balanced performance measures. And third, the human element of skilling employees and developing leadership matters just as much as technical design. We recommend Amazon leadership approve phase 1 mobilization immediately, establish a cross regional program office, review pilot KPIs and 12 months before scaling to phase 4, and commission an independent review of phase 2 data so that any decision to scale rests on evidence, not momentum. The problem isn't Amazon's inability, it's a lack of configuration, and it's a problem Amazon is uniquely equipped to solve. Thank you. Thank you so much.